So I met Carlos not too long ago. We have a circle of just incredible friends, and I get on the phone with this guy, and I'm just like, my energy just starts climbing through the roof. I'm like, I gotta go do something amazing right now. Because he goes, and I'm going to let him tell the story because I'll totally butcher it, but he had a really cool session with Tony Robbins recently, and what Carlos teaches is all about follow-through, right? So we just learned a whole bunch of stuff from David, from Ruby, from everybody that came up here, Tina, Casey. It's just brilliant interviews all the way around. What happens, Carlos, if we don't put it into action?
So basically, you guys just waste, right, another day of your life. You see, in life, once you find your one thing, like you want to be like a postage stamp, right? You stick to something and you don't stop until you get to the destination. You know what I'm saying? It's like, a postage stamp. Like my father, I never met the guy. I dream with him sometimes. My father was about to become a priest. And he saw my mom in Brazil, and my mom was a model, and he fell in love with her. So he decides to no longer become a priest. And then they start dating. It was that beautiful Romeo and Juliet story. And they date for a couple of months, and then they decided to marry. And then they have the biggest baby in the jungle, 14.8 pounds, little Carlos. You have a baby, and you go to somebody's house. Here, what a beautiful baby. Hold it. You're like, God damn, I'm already tired. Take your baby back. 3 months later, a tragedy happens. My father died in a gun explosion. And my father, I grew up my entire life hearing about this guy, where he was doing 2 colleges, he was a manager of a bank, he did a test with like 10,000 people and he passed like in 2nd place. And this guy, he was focused on one thing, and at the end of the day, sometimes he would give up his dates, he would give up his football, he would give up something to work on a cause, like you guys are here right now, right? Yeah. You give up your weekend to be here, and I honor that. Yeah. And this guy, man, he would go around the trash dumpsters around the city in Brazil. Not to look out for food, but because people couldn't afford their babies. And they would leave the babies in the dumpsters. Yeah. And my father would go there, and he would pick up those babies, and he would go around town, and he would recruit business owners, take more babies, go to more dumpsters, go to more cities. And they would take those babies to churches, to shelters, and then he would father those babies. He would read the book, he would read them the Bible independent of what religion. He would teach them martial arts. He would teach them the acoustic guitar. And he would just father those little kids. And I was like, every time that I feel like tired, like something hurts, like I have a few herniated discs, I was in agonizing pain right up one of my lives. I was hanging upside down on the inverter, and then I was for 30 minutes shaking in a jacuzzi full of ice as I iced my body so I could numb myself, so I could drive here. Oh, my wife dropped me off nearby. I was supposed to go have dinner with her, but I'm like, you know what? The train never stopped. We'll have dinner another time. I'm here on a mission.
Thank you, brother. It's just Okay, so I have never been so excited about it.
Wow.
Tell it. Can we know? And it's beautiful, your journey from Brazil over here. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that journey, and then maybe you could tell us how you ended up in the Tony Robbins event, because it's a beautiful story. But for now, tell us the journey. How did you arrive here?
Man, like speaking of this one thing, right? So I went from this whole Romeo and Juliet story to poverty, and they call my mom the Black Widow. My stepfather was murdered. So my mother was going through hardship. So I saw that she was working as teacher, and then she was making bread on the side. So I was like, say, Mom, why don't you make more bread so I can help you? Because one half of the week I was being mentally abused, and the other half I was being tortured. You know, my stepfather would argue with my mom, and he would abuse her behind closed doors, and I would just hear the pounding. And then he would walk out of that door, and he'd walk out of the house for days at a time. And my mother would walk out of that room wiping the tears out of her eyes. And I was, 6.5 years old. And I wanted to do something about it, and I couldn't do nothing. The other half, my mom drops me with my grandfather. He was in the military. He comes home drunk, and then he wants to abuse my grandma. I tried to stay in between them to avoid and break his pattern, then physically abuse. So one half of the week I'm being physically abused, the other half I'm being, mentally tortured. Oh. That was my life. And you guys already know the drill. What do we do when that's your stories that you keep telling yourself? I wrote that letter. And I saw myself in a kitchen, 6.5 years old, and I had a knife in my hand. And I was about to stab myself. But right before that happened, I heard something. I called it whispers from God. And the big guy up there, and he said, "Hey kid, I know it sucks. I know it sucks big time. I know you're hungry, you're poor, you don't have any father figure, you don't have any leaders. But your friends that you play soccer with, they just poor as you are, even worse. I was super poor, but it was even worse. How come you don't reframe your problems and try to go help them?" And I was like, you know what, God? That's a good idea. And then I dropped the knife. And I decided that day, like the unleashed version of myself was born. And I told myself, I'm gonna read more books than anybody else in the neighborhood. I will outdo all my competitors that sell bread on the street. I will teach my friends that sell empanadas and water and beers and sodas how to sell faster, and I will get an override out of them. So I could leave the hood, go to another country, be able to provide a better future for my mom and the torture. Come back and help my kids, my friends, they are dying on the street. For all the ones that passed away, I will not stop. I will come back and I will make a difference. Their lives wasn't dying in vain. And I kept it going, And I would sell bread on the streets. I was a little chubby, and I had a little beat up bicycle, and I would go to the corner. Back in the day, there was no technology, right? In the 80s. So I would go to where they're gonna go to the bus stop. When they get the cash check. And I go over there, a little chunk, and I'm like, Brad, I got the magic bread. I got the special bread. This bread, special. Doing the whistle, and everybody, what the heck, this kid's crazy. I don't need the Prozac. And then, I was like a little hustler, 7 years old, very good at this thing. I learned how to make sounds to break my pattern because I was depressed, all the stuff that I did. Beautiful. So I used the sounds. Sometimes I'd be like crying or angry, I'd be like, yes. I would break my pattern. I say, I will not be denied. Greatness is within me. My grandma, bro, one day Les Brown cried when I tell him this story. My grandma used to, after we get abused by my grandfather, I'm sleeping on the floor, below her hammock. And she would read me. She said, son, it's better to laugh instead of crying. And she would read me in Portuguese, Les Brown quotes. Oh, wow. And I told my brother Les Brown from another father, I said, bro, you have no idea. Thank you for writing those books. Thank you for giving up. Thank you for having one like a month on YouTube when you started and you didn't give up. And people complain because they only have 2 likes or 3 likes. Don't stop if it's your mission. And my grandma used to read me, son, shoot for the moon and you're going to land among the stars. And you'll meet people like this gentleman over here, and you'll meet celebrities, and you'll meet billionaires, and you inspire them. And they ask you to come on their stage. They ask you to interview you. But I'm so happy for my grandma that passed away that she grabbed me those quotes. And I just kept it going. And I worked from age 7 until 18 for 11 years. Selling bread, doing all kinds of work. And my mom and I come to this country with $800 in my pocket. And then, fast forward, many years later, I went door to door in America, trained a lot of people how to do sales and marketing, the telecommunications field, business to business, door to door, telemarketing. I was very good. Communication, training people, get them to move, get them to get results. I would remind them, oh, you are tired? No, somebody else has worse than you. Push. Go adopt a child in Africa, in another country, pay $20 a month. Go do something, reframe it, donate a little bit more money, push. Have something to look up to. And I would inspire them to get results. I would turn on the switch. As I call, I mentored a few Navy SEALs. They come from war, they want to kill themselves. No, call me out before you pull that trigger. Let's turn on the switch. The switch is a Navy SEAL term. When it's no longer about me, it's not about Ryan, it's not about none of us.
Right.
It's about we.
Right.
When we turn on that switch, transcendence above oneself. If we come like that in reality, like the whole world, all the presidents, all the leaders of the world, all the celebrities, all the billionaires, if all of us can come together and turn on the switch, now anything is possible. Now there's no expectations. Now if I ask myself, how can I screw this up? Now I know when I come over here on the stage, whether it's on Ryan's stage or Tony Robbins' stage or whoever's stage, we are all the same. I tell people all the time, billionaires, if I'm talking in the hood, if I'm speaking in prison, in the school, doesn't matter. 150 years from now, none of us are gonna be here. It doesn't matter how big is our house, how big is our car, if we fly first class or private jet. People, they don't care how much we are worth it. They care how much we care. Right. At the end of the day, how many people are gonna show up when you die? But you know what's crazy? Talking about Tony Robbins, man. What
yes, please. Oh, that's fun.
Because I talk too much.
Yeah, that's fun. No, it's fun.
So, imagine you're on the top of the world. You know, you don't have all those sales. Now you're making millions. You know, you already proved. And you've done big things in Brazil and here, and you've trained thousands of people, leadership training, marketing, sales, speak 7 languages. You've done all that. And you have your daughter's born, and she can hardly sleep. And you go to 20 doctors, and you spend over $100,000, and nobody can find the cure. Along the process, my loving wife, wouldn't sleep because she was very stressed out about the whole thing. It took us about 3 years to find out that my daughter needed to operate her tonsils and her adenoids. 3 years to find out something so normal, and the doctors couldn't figure it out. Imagine a baby waking up and is screaming every night for 3 years. That was my life. You know what I mean? Like, people always see the success, but they don't know what's going on behind closed bars. You know what I mean? They don't know what's going on behind the closed doors, the arguments, the stress, the anger, the hate. You know what I mean? They don't know about all this crap that's going on. It's so easy. Oh, he's on stage with so-and-so, or you got a photo, you got millions in the big account. What if when money doesn't fix the problem, then what? You know what I mean? When money doesn't, so what is the purpose of life? We forget about those things. So we operate my daughter. She's still like tossing and turning after the operation. The screaming stopped and the crying. And we figured it out 2 years later that that's a genetic problem called methylation, like MTHFR. That now I just got a monitor and supplement her a few things. But thank God she's like 90% better, my daughter. And but my wife, man, my poor wife, this whole 5 years, everything that she went through. So I come home one day from work, corporate America, and then I see her in a corner crying. And I say, babe, are you okay? She said, not really. Like, we have everything. You're doing so much for the world, and I don't want to be another burden in your life. I was like, what are you talking about? You're doing big things in Brazil, and for your company, you have all these awards and this and that. But I don't feel anymore. I just wish that God would take me. And I was like, shit. I haven't cried in a long time. Last time that I cried when I had the knife in my hand when I was 7, which was a mistake to hold on those feelings. Not to have a friend to call or a mentor to call to talk about it, our feelings. And when you hold shit inside, women normally guys will get thyroid problems. Men will activating all kinds of other diseases when you hold shit inside. So we had quite a few problems health-wise, and my wife told me that it was almost like, God spoke with me again. The whisper said, what are you doing with your life, brother? What happened to the little poor kid that didn't have food to eat, that didn't have rice at times? And I was like, shit. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have the answer to something. I would get a call for everything. If you had any problem, they would call me. I went door to door and I sold cake with the hood. I knew good people, bad people. I knew politicians, celebrities, I knew everybody. Whenever there was something, they needed to negotiate something possible, I always get the calls. For the first time in my life, I didn't have an answer. And they hit me, man. God hit me and he knocked me down hard. And I said, brother, I surrender. For a long time in my life, I surrender. I let it go, ego and significance and power and money. And I just said, what do I do now, God? I haven't prayed in a long time. I haven't opened the Bible in a long, long time. And I went to the garage and I meditate and I pray. After 30 minutes, I saw a book. And in my garage, I was supposed to clean the garage a few days before. And guess what that book was? Somebody here in the room as a hint said it. I'm waiting the giant. Great freaking listener. Yes, sir. That was KC said that. You know?
Old friend of ours.
Yes, sir. My brother. And I saw that and I started crying. I get the chooses to think about that book because I walk in there, I was in the garage, and I grab that book and I go, and I move the dust. And I open the book and I'm like old people, man. I have a post-note. I'm 375 years old. I have a bunch of paper clips and post-it notes and all these highlights in the book. And I say, thank you, God. And I start going through all my notes. I got to call Tony Robbins Corporation. And then I read the whole book. So I go, and my wife, I asked her, babe, do you want to go see a coach, like a doctor, a therapist? She said, no, babe. Nobody can help us. I'm just tired. And I said, okay. I'll figure something out. So then I start reading the book and I go and I call Tony Robbins Corporation. And I talk to the secretary. She's like, hold on, your wife don't feel like living anymore and she doesn't want to go see anybody and you're gonna want to learn 40 years of Tony Robbins? I'm like, look, I don't care if I have to learn 300. I don't have a choice here. I'm gonna go in a must mode. I'll do whatever it takes. Tell me every single thing that I gotta buy from this damn guy so that I can learn it. So that she's like, let me get my manager on the phone. And the manager comes in, and I go and I explain the manager the whole situation. He's like, holy shit, you are on a mission, brother. I was like, you haven't seen it. I was like, when I tell myself something, I'm gonna do it. So a new journey started that day. A brand new man was born. I decided to quit my job to stay home. And I told my wife, and I actually happened to tell Tony Robbins as well in an event live a few years ago about this story. He asked me, he raised my hand in the audience and he asked me, what did you learn here during the event, Carlos? And I said, what I learned over here, brother, was priceless. But I want to take this moment. You know how he always tell us to thank you doing the tapes and doing the CDs and the cassettes? Yeah. So I wanted to thank you for saving my wife and my daughter. If it would have been up to you, they'll be dead right now and I probably would kill myself out of remorse. And I told him, this is between me and you, big guy. Everybody else close your ears. And the whole room, 3,000 celebrities and wealthy people in this room that paid minimum $10,000, $15,000 to be in that room. They all like, look at me like, what the heck is happening here? And Tony grabs his little seat and he sits down in the middle of the stage. I am all ears. And I start telling him the story that I'm telling you guys. And I go and I say, you know what, and I told my wife, you know what, babe? I got good news and bad news. I quit my job. I'm gonna live on my savings for a couple of years. I will become the coach. I will become the therapist. I will learn how to become a doctor. I will become your chef. I'll become your best friend. You don't sleep, I will stay out with you all night. I will do whatever it takes. I'm gonna say,
wow.
You know, it's just like, I tell people all the time, man, you know, we have the rest of our life to make money, but we don't have the rest of our life to save somebody's life. You know what I mean? And that's how I'm always thinking about those kids, you know, overseas, when I see people like you and some of my friends that are involved in causes. I love to support and add value to people. Anything to do with helping kids, helping, you know, like, what's his name, Gary, asked me to sit on the board of Rock Sex Against Trafficking. You know, just having a conversation, I think, to attract billionaires and amazing people into my life. And they ask me those things, and I'm like, anything that I can do to add value to your organization. I never go into a meeting or an event, what is in it for me, or how can I add value to you? You know, I mean, I turn on the switch. When you turn on the switch, now it's no longer about me. It's about how can I add value to the room? How can I add value to somebody in need? If I hear somebody, you know?
Yeah, so Carlos, as we wrap up and go home, what do you think our technique should be? You know, no, this is a serious question, because he helps us anchor our thoughts into action. Amen. And I think that's the key. So, what do you think our strategy should be in departing today?
So the biggest thing, guys, is just I want you guys to focus on that one thing right now in your business, one thing in your life, in your health, in your faith, whatever area of the sphere of life that you are working on.
Can we ask everybody what their one thing would be?
Yes, that would be awesome to have a round, and I want you guys to focus.
What was the? I kind of.
It's focus on one thing that you need to do to improve your life or your business when you leave here.
And then just to add to that up, as you think about this, I wanted you to challenge your team, and I wanted you to ask your team a question that I always ask all the entrepreneurs and leaders that I mentor worldwide. what is one thing that we can do that our competitors won't do, can't do, and won't think about doing it.
Interesting. Wow.
And not only that, if you want to take it to another level,